Remember 9/11. That's what retired firefighter Lee Ielpi teaches people every day, even though he would rather forget.
9/11 is not a day that I want to remember. I want the world to remember it. We sent a beautiful message out there about our strength, about our volunteer spirit. So I want the world to remember that. I don't need to remember the day my son was murdered.
The body of Lee's son, firefighter Jonathan Ielpi, was found still wrapped in his FDNY turnout coat and battered helmet 3 months to the day after 9/11.
Here at the World Trade Center site, out of those 2,749 people that were murdered that day, there are still 1,122 people unaccounted for. Can't find them.
That's why Ielpi stayed on the pile 6 more months, helping other fathers search for their sons. While he forgot about everything else, he says America began to move on.
We forgot about 9/11 a year later, 6 months later, because it didn't happen in Cincinnati. It didn't happen in Washington State, but it did, didn't it? It was on our soil.
So this grieving father pledged to never abandon the World Trade Center site. He co-founded the 9/11 Tribute Center here. More than a museum, it's a learning center.
This could be the answer. I mean, we had to go to war. We demand justice. I mean, that's just the way things are, all right? But we should use this episode to educate, to enlighten, to make sure that our young people understand what happened.
There are artifacts like a twisted girder and the missing person posters that plastered New York for months after the attacks. Visitors leave their own thoughts on cards. One asks simply, why? But everyone is drawn to Jonathan's firefighting uniform, a huge gash ripped vertically from top to bottom.
To date, we've trained well over 470 guides, all volunteers, all come from the 9/11 community. You lost a loved one, you're a rescue worker, you're a survivor, you're a volunteer, you're somebody who worked in the area and watched that day and saw things that nobody should ever do, let alone you watch them do, right? So we've become the voice for those people that don't have a voice.
Every 9/11 family provided a photo or other memento. They filled 2 entire walls at the Tribute Center. Jonathan Ielpi is shown with his own boys. An intensely personal photo his father decided to share with the world in hopes education can prevent a future attack.
Can't bring my son back, can't bring my friends back, but we can make a difference for tomorrow.
Back now live, you're looking at the North Tower footprint waterfall. This is the precise location where the North Tower stood. Since the early 1970s, it started going up in the late 1960s, of course, at 8:46 a.m. This is where the first plane struck, beginning that awful day. You're now looking at the rest of the site. We're actually standing right above where 2 presidents will be speaking momentarily, both President Obama and George W. Bush. I wanted to mention quickly that Lee Ielpi, who you just heard his story, he really is courage personified. The man is a solid rock. He's a 26-year veteran of the FDNY, a decorated war hero. But imagine the courage to walk by your son's turnout coat with that gash ripped in it every single day. But he does it, and he comes back here to make sure that we, all of us, never forget.
Brendan, you have obviously spent a great deal of time in New York, living there, been there for anniversaries. How different will this 10th one be?
You know, a lot of people, look, there's so many different perspectives, Catherine, that, some people are looking at this as a time of healing. Others are looking at it as a time to look back. Others are looking at it as a time to look forward. And actually, that's sort of how this whole process has gone. This 16-acre site, the families wanted this to be kept as essentially a cemetery. I mean, nearly 3,000 people lost their lives here. So there was a concerted effort among many of the families to preserve this, because would we build a skyscraper on the top of a cemetery, in Cincinnati? Absolutely not. And that was sort of their feeling here. But then, of course, it's 16 acres of the most valuable real estate perhaps in the world. So there is a mixture here, and what you're seeing here is sort of that representation of everyone who was involved here now, in the past, now, and in the future. So for everyone, it means something different. Lee Ielpi told me that 10 years means it's been 10 years since he could last hug his son.
Brendan Keefe live for us in New York. And Brendan, we appreciate you doing some great work there, certainly.